All right, now let's go to the story about the Nnpc. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has released its audited financial statement for the year 2020. The latest report by the Nnpc shows that aside the already announced PAT from a loss position of about 1.7 billion naira in 2019 to 287 billion naira in 2020, Nnpc's total current assets increased by 18.7% compared with that of 2019, while its total current liabilities increased by 11.4% within the same period. Now, in addition to the group's working capital, it remained below the line at 4.56 trillion naira in 2020, as against the 4.44 trillion naira in 2019, while the corporation's group revenue for the 2020 financial year stood at 3.718 trillion naira, as against to 4.634 trillion naira in 2019.
We're now being joined by Arise business analyst, ROTUS ODDIRI, for a breakdown or implication of those figures. Good to have you, ROTUS. A lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers.
I
was throwing all those numbers out there.
I want to ask you before you pull it apart.
Yeah.
Is what we're seeing, because earlier on we're celebrating that the Nnpc had finally declared some profit.
Right.
Was that a sleight of hand?
Right.
Or is it something, profit that is sustainable and can be traced to real productivity?
That's an excellent question. So we had those numbers up a second ago. Let's put them back up. So what the essential answer is that these are one-off items. So this is perfect. How I read off those numbers. The two numbers that our viewers and everybody should focus on is the impairment reversal at the top right of 713 billion and other income of 675 billion. What everyone needs to know about these numbers, these are one-off items. They are one-off. So to answer your question, no, this doesn't give us a clue as to what's going to continue down the line, because what led to the profits of 287 billion that you're seeing at the bottom right of your screen was due to one-off items. If you're an investor or you are, regulator or whoever, and you're looking at these numbers for a company, you want to know that the company activity is what is leading to the profits or loss that is declaring. Nnpc declared a 1.7 billion naira loss last year. So how did you swing from a 1.7 billion loss to 287 billion profit? How did you do it? What did you do? So what we're seeing here now, the impairment reversal. If I say to you that my vision is impaired, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Can't see well.
You can't see. My vision, the quality of my vision has fallen. An impairment is when an asset loses value. So in 2019, the 260-something billion loss you saw, 273 billion actually under the impairment. You see that 2019 there. Their assets were downgraded in value by that figure. All of a sudden, in 2020, your assets that lost, or rather were reduced in value, impaired to the tune of 273 billion, now had a profit. And now you gain back a 713 billion all of a sudden. Now, an impairment reversal is when an asset that you've initially said was downgraded has now swung back to a profit. So that's what they said. Also, other income. Other income refers to income items that contribute to your income statement that are not part of your day-to-day productive activity. So it could be miscellaneous items. So I think we'll move on to the notes. I think there's some notes where they try to explain these numbers. But the gist here is that these are one-off items and they are not part of the ongoing activity. Because look, what was 2020 like for oil companies? A number of companies were declaring losses and impairments left and right. Oil prices cratered, jobs were lost. Okay, here we are now. So to explain this, these are the financial impairments, note 11. This is talking about the impairment reversal I just talked about. So they're explaining, we took this from the financials, and this is what they're saying. So let me read this. So it says, the impairment reversal during the year, the financial year 2020, relates mainly to the recovery of strategic alliance receivable amounts from the Federation and reversal of full impairments on receivables which are no longer doubtful. I'm sorry for all the financial jargon.
Please, can you break it down?
So where they say that the impairment reversals, that is the 273 billion loss or impairment in 2019 that has now swung back to 700 plus billion, that is due to what they're saying as strategic. Now, the Nnpc has to explain this. They're saying it is, quote unquote, strategic alliance between them and the Federation. And then also a reversal of receivables. Receivables, if you sell something to someone and they owe you, and you sell it on credit for 30 days or so, you have a receivable. If you sell me your phone and I tell you I'm going to pay you for this phone in 30 days, and this phone is, how much is this phone? 400,000, 500,000? So you have a receivable of 500,000 coming from me in 30 days time for this phone. If I run off to Canada, or if I pass away, or if I'm thrown in jail, if that receivable becomes doubtful, you have to impair that amount for the phone, because you're no longer sure if you're going to get the money from me in 30 days or not. So the money that was supposed to be going, and we think this could be related to under recovery, the subsidy payments, because the Nnpc is no longer recognizing those losses on their balance sheet. It's now going to the Federation account, which is held by the 3 tiers of government. So essentially, receivables that were going from the Federation to the Nnpc that they initially said were doubtful, that they were initially reduced in value and saying, we don't think we'll get this money. In 2020, they said, oh, we're getting it. You're now looking at, let's move to other income now. There's 675 billion in other income. Here is some of the explanations. This is in note 12. Refund from the Federation, 110 billion. You can see it is a 70% jump from 2019. Well, where did that come from? What is the refund from the Federation? Yeah. What did the Buhari administration, why would they pay back 110 billion to the Nnpc? For what? Then you've got sundry income. Sundry income is miscellaneous income. That is, if you're a hairdresser, if you are a bookseller, you get sundry income from stuff that is not related to the hairdressing you do or the books that you sell. So that's what you see there in the middle at 157 billion. Look at that jump, 105% jump from 2019. Well, what did you do? What was the sundry income that? So these are the things that, and then that last one on the right is the one that really has people scratching their heads. 250 billion, right? A variation in crude stock. Now that has to do with the different grades of crude we assume that the Nnpc pulls out of the ground and sells off. In 2019, you see that NA not applicable? Mm-hmm. There was nothing. In 2019, it wasn't even there. Record. Now in 2020. You're declaring 250 billion, and so you add all this up, that gives you the 675 billion. Now, if you strip out these numbers, if you take away the 675 billion, and you take away that 700 billion, and you take away all these other miscellaneous stuff, Nnpc would have declared a loss to the tune of almost 1 trillion naira for 2020. So you can see that, essentially just for anyone who is wondering how did this happen, these are one-off exceptional items, and that means that a one-off and exceptional item is just luck. It's something that is not in line with your normal productive activity that would lead to the profits or losses that you would declare in a typical financial year.
It's like something just uncommon, a one-off. Exactly.
And in this case, it is essentially support from the federal government, backstopping the Nnpc essentially, in order to at least be able to declare these profits for this particular financial year. So to answer your initial question, Kene, so 2021. I mean, it's anyone's guess what we'll say. We're post-PIA, but then PIA, remember, there's a steering committee. Nnpc is supposed to be corporatized in about 6-7 months. They're saying that they're going to IPO in maybe 3-4 years. But that's down the line. We again, look at oil prices, look at the refineries and assets, look at, under recovery, subsidies, all these things like that. That paints the picture of where we are. But hey, it's audited. Legit, it's a profit, and that's where we are.
It's a legacy. That's
what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, so many more questions, but we'll talk to you offline about that.
Certainly.
So thank you, ROTUS, for coming in and analyzing that.